Hello and welcome to the program this week. I'm Laido Olaringe. Let's begin with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
On Sunday, a large convoy of more than 80 fuel tankers arrived in Bamako after a nearly 1,400-kilometer journey from Niger. The delivery aims to ease the severe fuel shortages Mali has faced in recent weeks. The fuel will now be dispatched to stations across Bamako and other high-priority areas, with particular focus on public services, transportation, and power generators. The delivery is part of the Sahel Alliance AES countries' push towards self-sufficiency and economic solidarity. Insurgency group JNIM militants escalated attacks and blocked fuel convoys from neighboring countries in October, causing shortages and disruptions to transport and essential services.
Les forces armées de la République démocratique du Congo.
The Armed Forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo, FARDC, accused M23 and its allies of systematically violating the ceasefire agreed in recent negotiations. The force's spokesperson, Major General Sylvain Efomi, made these accusations during a press briefing in Kinshasa, addressing renewed hostilities with the M23/AFC coalition in North Kivu, urging the international mediators to act over the violations. Mr. Ekenge also urged the public to avoid speculation over generals and senior officers currently under questioning. He insisted the procedure followed Congolese law, stressing that the detentions were legal and involved no irregularities, explaining that officers remain under house arrest while investigations continue.
C'est pourquoi les forces armées de la République démocratique du Congo,
as Ethiopia responds to a deadly hemorrhagic fever spreading in the south of the country, Deputy Director General of the Ethiopian Public Health Institute, Dr. Melkamu Abte, said efforts to contain the Marburg virus outbreak are ongoing. According to the World Health Organization, Marburg virus disease MVD, closely related to Ebola, causes severe hemorrhagic fever and carries a fatality rate of between 24 and 88%. The virus is believed to originate in fruit bats and can spread to humans with an incubation period of 2 to 21 days. The outbreak was detected in the city of Jinka, home to around 30,000 people in southern Ethiopia, and as of November 20, 2025, the Ministry of Health has confirmed 3 deaths.
To our main stories for today, the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, in Niger State has confirmed that 50 students who were abducted from St. Mary's Private Catholic Primary and Secondary School in Papiri, Agwara, LGA have successfully escaped their captors. In a statement, CAN chairman and Catholic Bishop of Kotankara Diocese, Bulus Dauda Yohana, said the pupils regained their freedom between Friday and Saturday and quietly reunited with their families. The statement clarified that out of 430 pupils in the primary section, 377 are boarders, while 53 are day students. According to the bishop, 253 children, along with 12 staff members, remain in captivity. As a result of the incessant killings in Nigeria, authorities in several other Nigerian states in the north have ordered schools to shut down following the mass abductions. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has also ordered the recruitment of an additional 30,000 police officers and the immediate withdrawal of police officers providing security for very important persons, VIPs, in the country. And from Niger to Kwara State, the 38 worshippers abducted from the Christ Apostolic Church in Iruku, Kwara State, have regained their freedom. In a statement issued by the Chief Press Secretary to the Kwara State Governor, Rafiu Ajakaye, it read that the captives were released following days of coordinated efforts by security agencies and government officials.
At the Government House Clinic, the freed victims are attended to by medical personnel, many appearing haggard and exhausted after their ordeal. With the provision of medication, water and food, those who are weak are moved into the hospital, where they recount their harrowing experiences endured in the hands of the bandits.
It was just a sudden act, suddenly, and a terrifying act. We really know that it was a dominated area. by these evil people called bandits. Even they have the courage to tell themselves that we are bandits. And they make us know that there's no one that can just slip away without being caught. And with what we see, nobody can escape.
One of the church pastors expresses gratitude to both the federal and state governments for their efforts in securing the release of his members.
We are so glad to see our people back live, and we appreciate the governor of the state. We appreciate everybody for this great job. One of the authorities on the way coming. We thank God of Christ Apostolic Church.
Upon his arrival at the clinic, Governor Abdurrahman Abdurazak speaks with several victims and personally assesses the condition of those receiving treatment. He stresses that while the release of 30 victims is welcome, the ordeal is far from over, as many captives remain in other states. The governor also thanks the President, Bola Tinubu, for his instrumental role in ensuring the safe release of the victims.
The government and people of Kwara State, we thank President Bola Tinubu for his hands-on approach to bringing them back home. And you can see he did not go to the G20 just to pay attention to this, and we can't say much until they're debriefed, and the security agencies, we thank them a lot. The director of DSS was directly in the field, leading from the front. Thank the National Security Advisor. All the agencies coordinated properly.
Authorities insist they will continue to intensify efforts to secure the remaining captives, while families and communities remain hopeful for their safe return, underscoring the ongoing commitment to public safety.
As insurgency concerns continue to rise across Nigeria, former career diplomats Ambassador Joe Keshi and Ambassador Adenike Osonga have called on the federal government to act swiftly to address the worsening security situation. Referencing statements made by President Bola Tinubu in 2014, Ambassador Keshi said the nation should hold the president accountable, stressing that it is time for him to live up to his own words regarding national security and leadership responsibility. The diplomats made these remarks on our Foreign Affairs program, Diplomatic Channel.
When you see the way these criminals have proceeded, anytime I see a state governor dancing and negotiating with them, I just wonder what has happened to our rules, what happened to our laws. There is no law in this country that says you should negotiate with criminals or with terrorists. No matter what the reason for the terrorism is, you catch them and you discipline them. You try them and you jail them, and if they kill people, you sentence them to either death or life imprisonment. You've just seen one. This guy was just convicted, I don't know, last week or so, for terrorism. And, you know, if that rule with which they judged, what's his name now?
Nnamdi Kanu.
The hip-hop guy. Why haven't we used it for these other ones that have even preceded that one? I don't understand. I see some state governors, especially in the northwestern part, you see terrorists or bandits with their sticks, they'll be dancing, they'll say, oh, they have now resolved the issue, no more problem, within 2 months. And it is because they know they can get away with it. Those who shall have summoned the courage to actually pursue them and make sure that this thing is actually put a stop to. They have not done so.
Take your mind back to, to the hearing. You will hear the kind of language or adjectives that were used to describe, the Nigerian situation. Incompetent, in other words, these criminals or whoever they are perpetrating this crime, and nobody, cares to persecute them. And as a result, they are emboldened. But we can also not rule out politics. Right. Because just before, we started, I just was reading the various statements made by President Tinubu in 2014 and 2015. It is very instructive, and I think Nigerians should go back and read that if President Tinubu himself can recall all the statements he made in 2014 and 2015, how he described Jonathan as clueless, and then called for military action against the bandits. I think the time has come for the president himself to live up to what he said a couple of years ago and take military action against these people, for the simple reason that that hearing really did not portray us well. Describing our institutions as weak, describing our government as, describing Nigeria as irresponsible, describing us as incompetent. Come on, if you are really a Nigerian, you should feel sorry for this country when you hear foreigners, and some of them relatively young fellows in Congress.
You can watch more on these interviews on Diplomatic Channel. It airs tonight at 8:30 in the UK on Sky 515 and 11:30 on DSTV 420 right here on Channels Television. At the just concluded 2025 G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg, President Bola Tinubu, who was represented by the Nigerian Vice President Kashim Shettima, underscored that Africa's critical minerals hold the key to the continent's industrial transformation. He stressed that true prosperity will only be achieved if these resources are managed with transparency, fairness, and accountability. Well, the gathering of the world's major economies ended with a joint declaration committing to multilateral cooperation. The declaration, which covered climate change mitigation and economic inequality, was adopted despite objections from the United States, which boycotted the meeting in Joburg. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Samosa, has more.
20 member states and invited countries.
The G20 South Africa Summit Leaders Declaration reaffirmed its commitment to helping low and middle-income countries address debt vulnerabilities in a comprehensive and systemic way.
When we began our presidency, we pledged to mobilize the G20 to strengthen disaster resilience and response. Climate-induced natural disasters spare no country. Disasters know no borders. But their toll is heaviest on those without the means to recover and to rebuild.
Meanwhile, Nigeria has endorsed the G20 Ministerial Declaration on Debt Sustainability.
The current multilateral frameworks do not adequately reflect the realities of today's world. Many developing nations continue to face systematic barriers to economic growth, trade, and financial inclusivity. For trade to be truly inclusive, the G20 must take bold steps towards reforming the international financial architecture and global institutions.
The president of the U.S.-Cuba Trade and Economic Council says President Donald Trump made a mistake by skipping the G20 summit in Johannesburg.
It was a mistake for him not to be here because, yes, a president of the United States absorbs a lot of oxygen and gravity wherever they go. But if you're not in the room, you're not able to influence. And so he's watching from Washington, and the G20 happened. And one reason it was consequential, and it's because of the unknowns, and that is President Trump releases a 28-point Russia-Ukraine plan. Yesterday, the leaders that were here were able to get together, the European Union leaders, President Erdogan, they were able to get together and say, how do we respond to this?
I think that Trump has got an agenda. He has been busy with the campaign. He knows that what he's saying about South Africa is untrue. You can't have a massive State Department that has billions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of employees, embassies all over the world. In South Africa, they have 3 embassies.
The German ambassador to South Africa, Andreas Patschke, underscored the importance of cooperation.
There's a lot of tension, but I think the main message is a message of cooperation. So we need to cooperate to solve our international problems, and we want to cooperate.
No matter what the U.S. attitude is, China will still be firmly standing with South Africa and the rest of the global South country.
The G20 leaders have adopted the declaration. Now the question remains, what's going to happen to continuity, given the fact that a big chunk of that declaration speaks about climate financing, and we know that America is not for climate financing. We do know, again, that America and South Africa will be part of the G20 troika that conversation around climate financing will be key in next year's G20.
From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa at the G20 Leaders Summit, Channels Television News.
Counting of votes is underway in Guinea-Bissau after Sunday's presidential and legislative election. President Umaro Sissoco Embalo is seeking a second term in the country that has endured multiple coups. The 53-year-old former army general who first came to power in 2021 is backed by a political coalition of more than 20 groups, and he is being challenged by 11 other candidates. The elections have come at a critical time for the country, where democracy has recently been challenged by disputed elections that analysts say could embolden militaries that have forcefully taken power in several countries. Well, analysts say the vote was a close race between President Embalo and Fernando Diaz da Costa, the 47-year-old who is backed by former Prime Minister Domingos Pereira, the runner-up in the 2019 presidential election. Well, the winner needs more than 50% of the votes, otherwise the election will head to a runoff. The Independent National Commission of Inquiry into allegations and violations in El Fasher under Sudan's founding alliance has announced the immediate arrest of a fighter identified as Abu Lulu. The committee said to have conducted a direct interrogation with the suspect Abu Lulu, taking into account numerous reports and testimonies on the devastating killings that took place in El Fasher, northern Darfur. The committee has also called upon the Sudanese Sovereign Council chairman, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and other senior officials in his cabinet to turn themselves in after the issuance of an arrest warrant. Back in October, the United Nations Human Rights Office accused the Rapid Support Forces fighters of carrying out atrocities after seizing control of large parts of El Fasher. In the meantime, head of Sudan's armed forces, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has rejected a proposal presented by the Quad nations of Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the UAE and US for a truce with the Rapid Support Forces. He also accuses US President Donald Trump's senior advisor for Arab and African Affairs, Mossad Boulos, of imposing certain dictates that he says he will not accept, calling the proposal a bad document. All contributions from Africa's rich talent pool to the global sports and creative economy is yet to deliver expected returns on the continent. This is the sentiment of a select number of key players and stakeholders who believe the Gulf region plays a key role in connecting investors to the industries on the continent. Our correspondent, Mayowa Adegoke, captures this and more in this next report.
Africa's creative and sports economies, the migration of talent, and underfunding on the continent are key themes of discourse at the first edition of Courtside Capital in UAE's Abu Dhabi.
If I might invite, we have His Excellency in the room.
In the room are multinational stakeholders from across sports, culture, art, fashion, and music, all here with one agenda.
And as we end the program today, here's our fun fact about the continent. Did you know Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania and Mount Kenya in Kenya are the two highest mountains on the continent? Kilimanjaro is the tallest at over 19,000 feet, and Mount Kenya is the second highest at 17,000 feet. Both are located near the equator, with Kilimanjaro to the south in Tanzania and Mount Kenya to the north in Kenya. And that's it on the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.